At this time, I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Education Committee meetings to order. I will turn it over to Ms. Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I would like to call the Policy Committee to order, and for a quorum, I will call the roll. Lang,
Here.
Mr. Dunn, excuse me. Mr. Gray,
Here.
do we have anyone on Zoom? Mr.
We have Mr. Edwards and.
Mr. Edwards? All right, thank you.
Here.
We do have a quorum then. We will ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of our last meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of our last meeting. Are there any corrections or discussion?
Amen.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carried. Tonight, we have about 9 or 10 policies to discuss, and I will call on Jason to come forward to discuss the first 8 policies, 8 or 9 policies.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Right, so there are about 8 or 9 policies here, maybe 2 just with updates to the statutes and references. And some of the others really just have some clarifying changes. I'll go through them from the lowest number to the highest. So I'm starting with 4040, 7310, staff-student relations. The primary change here is an update in section 4 that really just cross-references what you'll see later is a new revised version of your policy 7130, which includes some updated language around mandatory reporting by administrators when there's knowledge of misconduct involving licensed staff.
Are there questions on policy 4040/7310, staff-student relations?
Amen.
All right, move right along. 4140, foreign exchange students.
Okay, so this is an entirely new policy in the sense that it's new to you. You have an existing foreign exchange students policy, it's 4134. So this proposed 4140 is designed to replace 4134, which had not been updated since 2009. So as you can see between the two, the new version contains much more detail around the program and structure and the requirements. You know, if the district were interested in a foreign exchange program, it just provides clarity for everyone, staff, and students, and parents. If the board is considering this new policy, you would need to do 2 things. So the action would be to rescind your existing 4134 and approve this new 4140.
Are there questions?
Amen.
All right, then we need to rescind 4134 first, is that correct?
You could do it all in one fell swoop.
All right,
It might make sense to pull this one out from the others when it is up at a regular board meeting, just to clarify that those 2 actions are happening, but they can be in the same motion.
all right, is there a motion then to approve policy 4140 and rescind policy 4134 to recommend to the full board approval for this?
And just doing these separate of the others.
Yeah, because of 4134.
Rescinding. So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve for full recommendation to the board approval policy 4140, foreign exchange students, and rescind policy 4134. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. The next policy is 4240/7312, child abuse and related threats to child safety.
And this also, the primary change is a reference to your revised policy 7130, which again contains some new reporting requirements. There's also some language at the very end that's meant to address statutory requirements around the resources that are required to be made available to students. I think it's on page 4 or 5, right at the very bottom. And that is again just to comply with some updates to the applicable statutes. The resources are being developed by the Center for Safer Schools, which is part of NCPS, and those new obligations to provide that information go into effect next year.
Are there questions? Hearing none, is there a motion that we recommend to the full board approval for policy 4240/7312, child abuse and related threats to child safety? And I don't normally do that. I don't know where my head is tonight, but anyway, I've done it now. So all those in favor? Is there a second?
Second.
I'm confused tonight, forgive me. Although, is there a motion, who,
You did
made,
the first, you did the
okay.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Tonight's my night, y'all.
Okay.
All right, the next policy is 4270/6145, concussion and head injury.
This mostly just has some clarifying cleanup changes, just referring to there's a switch between the High School Athletic Association and the State Board having primary authority over high school athletic rules. So these are some conforming changes to adapt to that. And there's some updates to statutory references. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. Are there questions for Jason?
No, ma'am.
Then we'll move on to policy 5023/6128/7268, emergency administration of naloxone. Is that correct pronunciation?
I am not good at pronouncing medications. My wife points that out all the time. She's in the medical field and she gets a kick out of it. So I think what you said sounds right. So this is a new optional policy. The School Boards Association had heard from and seen some boards who had started to implement the use of this. It's for opioid overdoses. So they just decided to draft a policy for it. The policy itself goes through, kind of outlines and provides guidelines around the availability, administration, and use. Again, it's not one that you have to adopt, but if it is something that the system is using or considering using, it would make sense to have a policy that governs.
Other questions?
And I would just say too, that the policy does not require the use of, it doesn't require you to go out and have naloxone available. It's just if it is something that's being used, this policy.
I guess just, is there any color around, is this something that is needed? I mean, do we face this in real life?
You're asking me.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, Dr. Farrow, SROs, do they carry naloxone now on their person? Christy, do you know?
We have naloxone.
Narcan and naloxone are the same, yeah.
We have it in the schools.
So normally SROs took that over. I know at another school, we used to keep it available in a nurse's room, but SROs were then required to carry it. So I think we're kind of so
We have it in the schools.
good.
So
it's there. Yeah.
And one of the reasons that because I believe it was who was it that gave us that? EMS had a large supply that they gave to schools. And one was because, as you know, we have football games, you have basketball games, you have other activities. happening in schools, and you don't know who is coming in, who might be in need of it. And so we have it on our campuses in the event that it would be needed. And the other thing is, you don't know, unfortunately, what some students may be doing.
One second.
Okay.
So, you're saying naloxone and Narcan are the same?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ms. Terrell,
She's nodding, so I'm
She's
thinking
nodding.
we made a correct statement.
I'm sorry.
One's a generic name, one's a brand name.
Gotcha. Mr. Gray.
I got a question.
1 second, Ms. Davis. Let's hear from Mr. Gray and then you.
So with that being said, we actually have it in the schools. We don't have a specific policy yet for its administration.
We have a protocol.
You have a
We
protocol,
have a protocol.
but we don't have a specific policy. But I also heard Dr. Farrell say that we could have it just in case something happened at an athletic event or another school event. And would we be, or would somebody be administering it to someone who may not be a student?
Someone who was trained.
Right. Understood. Definitely someone who is trained. But would they be expected to administer it to someone who is not a student in the school system? I'm just asking because would there be any specific ramifications or anything? No? No liability. Okay.
And I think you can answer this, Mr. Weber, in the event that you're attempting to save someone like through either CPR measures or other life-saving technique, that there's not if you are a trained individual.
There is, so there's a specific statute
Okay.
that applies to these situations in order to make sure your staff aren't caught in that line.
Okay.
And I would say too that this policy itself, again, and it says it in here, it applies to like school systems supply naloxone, so it's not the kind of thing where you have law enforcement or EMS or something that they have, it says that all of this
Right.
is for your own people.
Understood.
And to the point of, again, this is an optional policy, so districts have it used, they have it used, their protocols to follow, I'm sure they work very closely with their health departments and nursing, staff to do that. I would say that if it has not been reviewed in great detail, I don't want it to conflict with any protocols that are in
It
place,
doesn't.
so, okay.
Aligns perfectly.
Perfect, all right.
Ms. Edwards.
No, I think my question's been answered. I just want to make a statement. If the school system itself doesn't have any locks alone, then I think the policy should rest on the agencies that do have it and that would be administering it.
But I think it was stated that we do have Narcan or naloxone. The statement's been made that we do have that. So I think the policy is in order because we do have that.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second that we recommend to the full board approval of this policy?
Second.
All right. The next policy is 6125, administering medicine to students.
We got to vote.
No, I'm back on track now, so I'm gonna do
You gonna do them all together? Okay.
all of them now. I'm back together now. Thank you, though.
We just had a motion and a.
So do you want me to withdraw my motion so you can do them all together? Would you?
No.
Okay.
That's fine. I can make that. All righty. I thought we were back together, but anyway. There's a motion on the floor that we recommend to the full board the approval of policy 5023 6128/7268, emergency administration of naloxone. Is there any discussion?
Ms. Bullock,
Yes, sir.
I asked a question, I couldn't hear it, but what was the purpose of that drug?
It's like Narcan.
It's a overdose,
Narcan.
students overdose on opioids, is that?
I'm sorry, Mr. Shaw, we can't hear you.
Is that controlled substance?
You're breaking up, sir.
Disregard, I'll talk about it later. Thank you.
Are you sure? If you got some questions, we'll answer them now.
Well, I'm breaking up. What I was wondering if that was a controlled substance drug.
No.
Okay. Thank you, man. That's all I had.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And I'm aye. Next policy, 6125, administering medicines to students.
And this policy just updates the names of the applicable state health agencies. Actually, the name actually is. No other changes.
Are there questions about policy 6125? All right, then we'll move on to policy 7130, licensure.
And this is the policy that's been referenced in a couple of previous, so 7130. There's a new, there are a couple of changes. The collateral entry licenses aren't a thing anymore to residency license, so there are some updates based on changes in statutes. This section 6 is something I think the board had already approved, but the NCSBA put it back in because it hadn't, I think, been updated on the website, so that's really not new. That's something you've seen already through sometime so I'm not sure why they don't have it updated on their end, but that's nothing we need to consider now. The main change is down in section F on this page 3. So this new section is designed to incorporate some new mandatory reporting requirements that are part of state statute and state Board of Education policy, where it requires administrators to report to the state Board of Education when licensed employees engage in certain types of misconduct. Definition of administrator in the state board rule, it's superintendent, assistant superintendent, HR directors, principals, category of and then the other key piece here, as part of the state board rule and statute, is the reporting requirement, remains in place even if the employee chooses to resign. As long as the resignation was the result of
Are there questions about policy 7130? Thank you. The next policy is 8340, insurance.
There are some updates here to address there's a difference between insurance and different types of liability coverage, so it's just a change in the language to be more expansive.
Are there questions on policy 8340, insurance? Then policy 8510, school finance officer.
And these changes are largely to align with changes in the State Board of Education policy, where they've made updates regarding qualifications and duties for a finance officer. There's some language here around continuing education requirements, and all of this really just aligns with what's required by the state.
Are there questions on policy 8510, school finance officer? And then thank you, Jason. Then we'll call on Mr. McQueen for policy 5071/7351, electronically stored information retention.
There is a lot of changes to this policy. The only change to this policy is the legal reference at the bottom. It references the digital records policy, and that's the only change.
Are there questions for Mr. McQueen on policy 5071/7351? All right, thank you, sir. Is there a motion then, and let's see if I can get myself together here. Is there a motion that we approve policy 4040/7310, policy 4270/6141, policy 6125, policy 7130, policy 8340, policy 8510, and policy 5071/7351. Is there a motion to recommend to the full board approval of these policies to lay on the table for 30 days? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend to the full board the list of policies just outlined. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Aye. Is there anything else to claim our attention, for the policy committee tonight? If not, I declare the meeting adjourned, and thank you for your patience.
Okay, this time, Administrative Services and Operations, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. I'll go ahead and call us to order. A quick roll call of committee members, Mrs. Evelyn Bullitt,
Here.
Mr. Franklin Lamb,
Here.
Mr. Zach Gray,
Here.
and Dr. Donovan Chavis. Jermaine, do we? All right, we do have a quorum, so I'll go ahead and move forward with our committee meeting. We've got a little bit of an update on the merger. We've got some budget pieces that we want to do, and then some work that's being done on Rocky Mount Middle. But we'll start with review and approval of the April 29th minutes from our last meeting. It was included in your committee packet. So has everyone had a chance to review? If so, I get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gray. Any discussion about the minutes or changes to them? Hearing none, all those in favor, please vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next piece of information is going to be presented on demerger by Dr. Ellis and his staff.
So we have is a demerger update, and I believe the first slide is going to be facilities.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I just have a quick update. This does date 5/20. There's been some updates since then, but starting with Rocky Mount Middle, the tennis courts, we're continually moving forward with that, and the surfacing I shared with you before, that bid process has been received. The motorized gate has been in place, access control is in place, and that will be up and running after graduation. Lockers and locker rooms, some updates that needed to take place have started and are well in progress. The City High door frame, there was some permits, they've been received, and since that door has been, or the wall has been taken out, the opening is in place. We are waiting till after all testing and retesting before we put in the actual door itself. But it is an opening at this time. Recan of the locks has been received and the contract has been executed, and the 500 hall wiring and controls have been all updated. Edwards facility plan, the playground equipment delivered and installed will be on 6/24. The fencing is already in place. I will commend Dr. Wilson on this. We have already done several walkthroughs, one of which was with Dr. Wilson. He's been in front of the planning process with Mr. Fields and myself, so that went really well. Signage delivered and installed on next week with June 3rd. City of Rocky Mount certification of occupancy, all of that is in place. We have gotten some feedback from DPI, and we're moving forward with that as well. The abatement will start on 6/10 from that one last classroom. We actually walked through that classroom. It's just some older tiles. There's no danger at this time, but we don't make a change like that until the students are out for school, out of school. And we started the painting process on the 700, 900, and 500 hallways for Edwards. Williford, quick update, the media center. There's been a lot going on at Williford. I don't even know where to start, but the media center light replacement stuff is installed. We're ready to start on the carpet. Lots of tables, chairs, all of that has been updated. Steel parking lot, we're waiting on that. The pavement piece, but the service window looks fantastic. And they're actually putting the window part in now, but the wall and the opening is really nice. Started the installing of, with Nita, they've got some partitions delivered and are ready to put that up. They've done all the carpet and rotated through classrooms and worked around testing. So hats off to the maintenance crew and the administration there for managing that. And the electrical piece for the media center and the LED lights, things are moving really, the marriage of working with the testing and everything has helped us be a little bit ahead, which is just in anticipation for changes that'll have to come at the last hour. Do you have any questions about this slide before I move on to the second one?
I have a question. It's just, Edwards Middle School going from middle school to elementary school. Typically, most elementary schools do not have lockers. Those lockers will remain, will be used, or they just will?
That's a great question. They won't be used. They will remain at this time, but we did have some of those conversations when we did the walkthrough. And that's going to depend on time. There's a very large hallway, so that will not be an issue. DPI,
Okay.
We got some approvals on that as well. We do want to look moving forward with our K1 hall, making some adjustments, but we don't want to speak out of turn since we got such a quick turnaround.
Okay.
But we did get a plan in place, and they're all locked in a way that the
got it.
students won't be. Yes, good
Okay.
question. So nobody's.
Any other questions on the facilities?
I'm going to move on to the second slide. As it relates to our demerger and some designation of money moving forward, there has been 1.7 million expenses or line item that will be put in place for our, from the General Assembly was designated the 2 million. I think there's been some question on this. 1.7 million will be allotted to the school district. It is broken down. You'll see there some of our renovations. Those are just rough estimates because it does vary from month to month on what we're doing and what our prices and bids are coming in for. So those renovations at the 4 targeted areas, and that does include some, I've had some sidebar questions about technology and things like that. All of that is included in these expenditures up to 1.7. There's 300 that is outstanding, and that is the county expenses, and that is a per pupil differential. Any questions? Any questions at this time?
Just give us a little, I guess, detail around per pupil differential.
So I can tell you a little bit about that, but I have a plan B if you ask me something I don't know the answer to. It's, this is based on Edgecombe County, the per pupil amount versus the Nash County per pupil amount and that differential there. And it may vary based on our number of students, but these are, as I said, all rough numbers up to that 1.7.
So it addresses the Edgecombe County students that will be in the 24-25 school year.
Yes, sir.
Nash County.
Yes, sir.
So, the commissioners are not actually paying that cost. It's actually coming from the General Assembly. From the out of the $2 million
is,
that the General Assembly appropriated. Is that correct?
and that's, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we have, Ms. Saunders and myself have met with their finance manager. That was a very good conversation, and I feel real comfortable moving forward with that communication. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions around that piece or anything else that's been shared so far? Thank you.
The next slide is the HR timeline. Ms. Wallace is not here today. What I'm gonna do is go through the May 20 through 24. That is where the classified vacancies, we did the TAs, the 23 classified that were RIFed. Certified, we did not have to RIF any teachers. But right now, the May 22nd, 31st deadline, staff are now being notified of their new placements. I believe Ms. Wallace said about 50 teachers based on the demerger have been moved, based on the lines, based on student enrollment. So they are receiving letters at this time through HR as to where they'll be. I believe Ms. Wallace sent a mass email telling all the teachers probably 2 weeks ago that we were not going to RIF, but these other sets of letters are the teachers that are moved to different buildings based on certification, things of that nature.
HR questions before we move on? Thank you, Dr. Ellis.
For our student service transfer timeline, May 13th, legacy approval letters were sent to parents and students. Letters were also sent to parents and students who are transferring to Edgecombe County Public Schools. So we wanted to make sure that we cover the entire gamut, those students who would be staying with us as legacy students and those students who would be moving on to Edgecombe County Public Schools. May 20th, letters were also sent to parents and students who were eligible for the grandfather status at Nash Central High School. That being those students who would be caught up in the change from Nash Central High School to Rocky Mount High School because of the change of lines. And May 30th, 2024, we have, as of this date, May 30th, 2024, God, if I can get it out, we have 202 legacy students at this time. Kevin Harrison, Section Chief, School Transportation Services. We spoke with you all at the last committee meeting, I believe it was, letting you know that there was a recommendation put on the table to give 25 of our bus credits to Edgecombe County Public Schools. That was sparked through a conversation that was had by the superintendent of Edgecombe County Public Schools and Kevin Harrison. We were made aware of that conversation on the end. However, we were in agreement with that conversation because transferring those bus credits was a win-win for both districts. It meant that we did not have to touch any of our buses, which the plan was, as we last understood it, was that the state was going to work with Wilson County to provide school buses for Edgecombe County Public Schools because Nash County Public Schools did not have 66 passenger buses to send to them. But at any rate, the transfer of credits, 25 credits, was agreed upon. There was a letter that was created by our superintendent, sent to the superintendent of Edgecombe County Public Schools. Both superintendents signed that letter, and that letter has been sent to DPI. And so DPI will manage the transfer of those credits.
I think we're good. Any questions on that? Anybody? Hands raised? If not, we'll move to the last slide of academic services.
Good evening.
Academic services has been busy working with Edgecombe County's academic department to ensure that there's a smooth transitions with resources. So currently, we're in the process of renegotiating contracts for our instructional materials. Edgecombe County recently confirmed that any instructional materials that they will not use can be picked up, but the pickup cannot begin before July 1st. We have been collaborating with the elementary department to ensure that students who are required to attend the mandated summer camp for Read to Achieve in second and third grades are able to attend based on the information that we provide to them. And I am continuously communicating with EdgeComb's Chief Academic Officer just to make sure our transition is smooth. Are there any questions?
So for the first time in a long time, we don't have any actionable items that are part of the demerger. This is all for information, but any questions about anything that we've just had to discuss or that's been presented to us before we do move on?
I have a question, but he may have said, and I apologize, getting from work is a chore with traffic.
You can go again.
The numbers for the grandfather, where are we in terms of the numbers we anticipate grandfathering?
From those at now Central High School.
Well, just both, I guess I want to say.
So you're talking about the students who were caught up in the changing of lines from Nash Central High School to Rocky Mountain.
That and as well as what the
As
number.
well as the legacy students. So for the legacy students, there's 202 legacy students at this time. As far as the ones that are being grandfathered from Nash Central High School, those 11th and 12th graders, I don't have a number for you right now. There's a spreadsheet that we have. I can get that number for you, share with the entire group.
It's not urgent, just thought if you knew. 23. Oh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Anything else, Dr. Chavis?
That was it.
Okay. Having no other questions, we'll ask Ms. Morris to come down and tell us a little bit about what sounds like a wonderful opportunity for our McKinney-Pinto students with the Boys and Girls Club.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I come before you this evening to request approval of a contract with the Boys and Girls Club of the Tar River region to provide a summer adventures program for our McKinney-Pinto homeless students. So Nash County Public Schools applied for and received 2 COVID-related grants for our McKinney-Pinto students. And those funds will expire come September of 2024. So we began reviewing the guidance for those funds, seeing what opportunities existed, and found that we were encouraged to do summer programming for our McKinney-Pinto students. We have worked with the Boys and Girls Club in the past through our 21st Century grants and through our iCares after school program. So in November of 23, we began working or talking with them about possibilities. And in those planning sessions, we've come up with the following recommended program: to serve 60 of our homeless students in grades K through 8, to have the program run for 9 weeks, and to offer it at 2 different sites, at the clubhouse in Rocky Mount and at Nash Central Middle School. While we certainly want to prevent summer slide and sharpen the reading and math skills of these students, we wanted to do more than that. Provide field trip opportunities that may not be available to these students normally, to make sure they had a supportive environment, feel safe, and to build their self-confidence and leadership skills. The hours of the program will be 8 to 5. Transportation for those that needed it would be provided, breakfast, lunch, and snacks as well. This was probably the hardest part of planning for this program. We have approximately 350 homeless students in grades K through 8. And so determining the 60 that would participate, so we came up with criteria, and we relied heavily on referrals from our social workers and principals to come up with the 60 students that have been identified. But you could see there the eligibility criteria. We are requesting a contract be approved with the Boys and Girls Club for $123,000. That will cover the staffing for the program, field trip opportunities, and supplies. Are there any questions?
Any
I got a
questions?
question.
Mr. Sharp?
So who's primary staffing this group? Is it Boys and Girls Club or people from the our school district?
So we work with the Boys and Girls Club to recruit Nash County Public Schools certified staff, but they'll be employees of the Boys and Girls Club. So we have 6 NCPS staff members working in the program and 2 college interns.
Okay, and the hours for this is Monday through Friday, you said?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. I think this is a wonderful program. I'm just shocked that we have 300 homeless kids in our school district. And I wish we could do something to serve more than 60.
Yes, ma'am. We actually
Well,
have
thank you for the
402,
60.
but 350 in K-8.
Can I piggyback on Ms. Bullock's question, please?
Yes, Bill?
So how do we what's our criteria that we classify as homeless? Is
So
it
we,
transit students or, because there are different definitions of what homeless is.
so the definition with the McKinney-Vento law is a student that lives in a temporary, non-fixed nighttime residence. And that could be shelter, it could be hotel, motel, it could be doubled up with another family, or even current family members due to economic reasons. So that is the definition. It's a broad one, but that is the definition we use to determine eligibility.
Well, I wasn't necessarily asked about eligibility as far as, how do we determine?
Oh, sorry. Okay, gotcha. So upon enrollment, each family completes a home residency questionnaire. But for students that are already in the system, every year the social workers will recertify the population, and we come up with a new head count every year. I apologize.
So homeless being, they can be living with a parent and still not have a place of residence? Or is it one that, I think as Mr. Farrow used to call it, with people that are in transit, they're moving from place to place?
If they do not have a permanent fixed nighttime resident, then they could qualify as being homeless.
And we got how many of those in our district?
402 as of today.
Is there any way possible you can break that out by regions as far as what part of the county?
I can, sure.
Because
Absolutely.
I'm in agreement with Ms. Bull. There's an awful lot of numbers with kids that are homeless. And there's got to be something we could do, if not engaging with our community, to help close that gap.
And I can tell you on behalf of social workers and student services and federal programs, we would appreciate any support. This COVID money has been put to good use, but it's ending. And we actually voiced this concern today on a conference call with the U.S. Department of Ed and Department of Health and Human Services, and asked them to please consider something to continue this funding. But yes, thank you.
So if I could make a request, like, I'm sorry if I'm asking, but this is a passion of mine when it comes to children. So if we could possibly have a breakout as far as grades and age groups for these homeless students, as well as logistically what region they're in.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Sure.
And Mr. Sharp, I know these numbers sound alarming and shocking, but these numbers are not out of sorts with numbers that we've had in the past, maybe a little bit more because of what has happened since the COVID pandemic. But Nash County Public Schools has always had a high number of McKinney-Vento students. If you think about where Nash County sits, being off of 95, and if you think about the fact that at one point we were a tier 1 county in terms of poverty, and when you look at our student
numbers in terms of free reduced lunch. You can say that almost 80%. So when you think about all the factors around the communities that we serve in Nash County Public Schools, although the numbers are seem shocking, it kind of falls in alignment with what has happened in the greater community.
And I appreciate Dr. Farrow mentioning that. Before COVID, we had 523 students, then we dropped, and now we're starting to increase again. So this is not where we were prior to COVID.
And I appreciate your sentiments behind that, but one student is too many. One is too many. So I know we're going to have them, but we need to, and I'm just speaking in terms for myself or whatever, we need to look for venues that we can sort of close that gap. So thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments? I feel like always gets asked, and you've already touched on it, but is there any possibility of securing funding, grant funding for in the future to be able to continue or hopefully grow a program like this?
Well, we're making requests, obviously, from different groups to continue some kind of COVID relief, or continue funding for our homeless populations. We will always look for other federal funding and other sources as well. So we hope to continue some kind of summer support ongoing, but we're thankful that we had this ESSER money for this year.
I got another question. I'm sorry. But do we have the business community, our community engagement people involved in working with this as well?
So we
Or
do.
we just look for federal funding for grant money or governmental assistance?
Yeah, so I will say we being all of us in Nash County collaborate with a lot of different agencies. And at one point, the United Way was trying to get a group together to actually, along with the police department and some others, help resolve some of these issues and provide additional supports. That committee is just getting started, and so at this point, it's a work in progress. But yes, I think there are ways that we can provide more supports if we work together.
Is Chief Hassel on that committee?
I did not see him at the last meeting, but they did have representatives from the Rocky Mount Police Department there.
Yeah. Okay. Because that's impacting the social side of our community as well.
Right.
Gotta be.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the discussion. Thank you for the presentation. Now I would ask for a motion to recommend approval of this contract to the board.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion around this? Hearing none, all those in favor, please vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we'll ask Ms. Saunders to come forward, have several budget pieces to discuss, a few resolutions that'll carry us through some changes, I guess, that probably happen between now and the end of the year, and an insurance one.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I'm gonna go down the list as you guys have it on the agenda. The first thing I have are the budget amendments for the current year. And on behalf of Dr. Ellis, I ask that you guys recommend these amendments to the full board for approval.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. These were provided in your committee agenda. Any questions regarding any of the items that were presented? No? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor, please vote by the sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right.
All right, so the second thing is the proposed budget resolution for fiscal year 25. In the same sense, I ask that you guys recommend this to the full board for approval on behalf of Dr. Ellis.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second by Dr. Chavis. Any questions around the proposed budget resolution and kind of what that means for us here in the coming weeks and months? Hearing none. All those in favor, please vote by the sign of aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
And the next item is the request that Dr. Ellis is able to sign off on the amendments for the remainder of the year because we won't have an additional board meeting to bring them forth for approval. So I do ask that this is also taken to the full board for approval.
So, second.
Have a motion, and a second by Dr. Chavis. Any questions about giving Dr. Ellis the keys? Call the vote. All those in favor, please vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, our last piece is insurance. Yes, ma'am.
Before Ms. Sanders begins, I would like to state for the record, I need to recuse myself from discussion and voting on this, as I'm a member of the North Carolina School Board Trust
Okay.
Board of Directors.
In light of that, I know we've got 3 here that we're voting, would we break them out or just allow Mrs. Bloke to recuse herself from the entire slate, I guess, of policies?
No, just that one.
With the others or just the one?
Just that one. The others that we voted on really don't concern the North Carolina School Board Trust. This directly is the North Carolina School Board Trust.
Are the others forms of coverage that the trust provides? I should probably know the answer to that.
No, these are local.
Okay.
These are
Separate it out and then
Yes.
Okay.
discuss and vote on that separate.
Could you
Okay, that's fine.
present those 3?
The first one I'll do is the automobile insurance that we do have through North Carolina School Board Trust. This is something we have annually. This is our coverage for all of our fleet. So I do ask that you guys allow this to go forward to the full board for approval on behalf of Dr. Evans.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Second from Dr. Chavis. Any discussion around renewal of our auto insurance? Hearing none, all those in favor, please vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Workers' comp.
Okay. So the workers' comp is through Surrey Insurance, and I ask that you guys allow this one to go to full board for approval.
Any questions about workers' comp? Can I get a motion to recommend to the board for approval?
So moved.
Dr. Chavis, second. Any discussion around our workers' comp renewal? Hearing none. All those in favor, please vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, our
And-
last one.
The very last one is our errors and omissions, what we consider our general liability insurance. And this too, I ask that on behalf of Dr. Ellis, we allow this to go to the full board for approval.
Just to clarify, this is also with the trust.
Yes.
Surrey is not
No,
The other
North
one would
Carolina
be,
School, but the others are.
he's talking about the
Right, the one
errors and
that's up
omissions.
For now, the one that's being proposed right now, the errors and omissions.
Oh, yeah, that one is, yes.
So
So moved.
did I work through those correctly?
It's fine, just a reminder for principals for future.
Right, okay.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
All right, so Mr. Gray with the motion to recommend for approval, Dr. Chavis with the second. Any discussion around that one? Hearing none, all those in favor, please vote by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any other questions from Mrs. Saunders before we let her go? Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, our last piece, we're going to bring Ms. Miller back and talk to us about some windows at Rocky Mount Middle.
Yes, sir. Thank you. On behalf of Dr. Ellis, we're recommending to the full board for approval. This was the bid process to conduct for the windows for Rocky Mount Middle and Tar River Academy. The low bid went to Carolina Classic Window and Glass, and it is for the phase 1 of the windows that were already approved.
Questions for Mrs. Miller from any board members?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Dr. Chavis. Any discussion around approval of the acceptance of this bid? Is that, I mean, it's not contract, it's just bid acceptance. Hearing none, all those in favor? Oh, yes.
What did he say?
Like,
Yes.
so how many windows are there total?
I'm not sure, Mr. Sharp, on the phase one part. We have repaired the broken windows that were in place, but it wasn't a permanent fix. Some were the, we had to go through a bidding process to get the new type windows that we put in, Williford or Nita and Edwards. So it's a different quality, and we had, previously talked about having that in several different phases, and this is the phase one. I'm not sure exactly that number.
Any
So,
other,
so we don't know exactly how many windows we got total for replacement, but we do have a bid on replacing them all for the first phase.
I'm sure that, I just don't know that number, Mr. Sharp, and I can get that number to you. I just don't know the exact number that we had bid out. It was down the whole middle
Right.
where we did the motorized.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. So it's on both sides of that.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, Ms. Miller.
If I could ask some clarifying question. So is there a contract associated with this item? This is approval of
Of the bid process, and we will be,
the, and then coming back.
so we have a motion and a second for approval of the bid acceptance prior to contract. All those in favor, please vote by the sign aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Those are all the agenda items that we have for committee. Any other items for the good of the committee before we adjourn? Thank you all again. I feel like so much heavy lifting for the demerger has gotten done by this group and by Dr. Ellis and his staff. So thank you all for what you have done and continue to do and still have left to do. But if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and adjourn the committee.
At this time, we'll go to Student Support Services, Sharonda Thomas Bullock.
Good afternoon. So at this time, I will go ahead and call to order Support Services and Operations Committee. Roll call, Dr. Chavis,
Here.
Mr. Edwards, Mr. Jenkins,
Here.
Mr. Sharp.
Here.
Okay, and I am here, so quorum is established. We have 2 items for information only, and then 1 action item. But I'll begin with the approval of the meeting minutes from April 29th. Do I have?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Dr. Chavis, seconded by Mr. Jenkins. All those in favor, please show a sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So first up, we have Mr. Byer with the transportation update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
But for the past year has been a challenge with new DPI instructor for Nash County. Thank you for Daniel Johnson and Scott Tadlock, the DP instructors that assisted in recertifying over 30 drivers of ours. In mid-May, we conducted a behind-the-wheel training for the first time of the class that we had in September. 3 drivers were trained behind the wheel and were given a CDL license, bus license. So that's good news. Currently, Mr. Wheeler can only handle recertifications at this time. I spoke to him today, and hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, he will be doing his own classes and training behind the wheel. All right. So this is what we have for this 2024-25 school year. We have 75 drivers, AM and PM drivers, 24 EC, 8 AM, 9 PM. So it's a total of 116 drivers. If you notice the snapshot I've done, this is what the bus assignments that we give to the drivers. And if you notice, most of them are high school, elementary, and middle school runs, right? So if you go to the next run. So this is our plan for next year. So we have 68 high school runs and 60 middle school runs. So we're gonna pair these runs up together with the AM and PM drivers and run them separate to give the drivers more time in between the high school and middle. So it should give them about an hour and 20 minutes to pick up the middle school students to get all the students to school on time. The elementary are gonna be covered by the remaining amount of drivers plus the TAs that we get trained this summer and the AM and PM drivers. All right, exceptional children. This year we struggled with 24 buses running. We had some drivers working 8, 9, 10 hours a day for EC buses. So we're gonna keep the same amount of EC drivers, just to bring their hours down to, on an average of 6 hours per day. All right. So the rodeo. So this event was gonna be held at the Martin Fairground building at the fairgrounds. This year we've got Early Cooper, one of our bus drivers for Fairview and Johnson, will be representing Nash County in the state competition. If he places between first and sixth place, he will be going to Houston, Texas for the Nationals. That's exciting. It really pumps up the drivers thinking that they have, a good, are important to our school system. I believe that. Have any questions?
Beginning of school next year, what are our numbers looking like as far as being short bus drivers?
So with the demerger, and that's something we're putting together now. Right now, we are starting to route the children that were they're on the buses now, putting together the routes and trying to do what I was saying is putting high school and middle school together. And once we get that done, I think we should be able to, mid-July, I could give you a better answer of how many. Because we had 13 elementary schools that we lost. I'm talking about runs, 13 elementary runs that we lost to Edgecombe, and I think it was 6 middle school runs. So that's gonna free up, roughly around 20 drivers to do a run.
So there's a chance we might be able to start fully staffed.
Well, I'm not gonna say
that would be a first.
I know, exactly. And the biggest thing is if we get our TAs trained up, that's gonna be exciting too.
Well, I was hoping we'd have enough not to involve TAs because they need to be in the building.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a question.
Question, how are we looking with monitors for the buses? Are we not even thinking about that at this point?
So we did hire a few drivers and train them as monitors just to save the drivers because we hired them in September, we done the class, and then all of a sudden, we lost our DMV instructor and we can't certify you as a bus driver. So I brought them in as monitors, trained them as monitors just to keep them in the payroll. So we do have a few that are gonna get their license and move up, so we're probably gonna have to hire some more monitors, for the beginning of the school.
So do we have a monitor for every bus, or what's that number? Or
No, sir. It's probably, I don't know the exact ratio, but I'm guessing it's probably maybe 4 out of 10 buses that are having monitors, except for the EC. EC, they have monitors. The 24 ECs, all of them have monitors.
Okay, so you said 4 out of 10, which means half of our buses do not have monitors.
Correct. And that's just, the regular school buses that run.
But they have cameras, right?
Yes. We try to put monitors on the elementary schools mainly. Middle school, high schools, they usually don't run monitors.
Okay. So with that being said, how are we doing with monitors on the elementary school buses? Is that, if I'm asking too many questions, y'all tell me.
No, you asking
you're
the same
fine.
question. You doing good.
I mean, I will get back to you with the exact
Okay.
number.
I wanted the same answer.
On how many elementary monitors that we have. I don't know right offhand.
Okay.
But I know we don't have one for every single elementary bus.
Well, what's the pay for that position?
It's the same thing as a bus driver.
It's the same as bus drivers. And what are the qualifications for that position?
Able to get off on a bus and off the bus from the back, especially,
Okay.
And we will be having this coming up here. I'm hoping I could get the EC department to help me train some of our monitors. I know they've done it in the past, but I don't think we've done it in the last few years.
All right, so are we currently recruiting for bus monitors?
Yes,
We are.
we have
So we
applications.
get, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Okay, so up next we have Mr. McQueen, the E-rate funding, and that is an action item.
Good evening. The Nash County Public School Technology Department was awarded $384,000 for E-rate funding. And what this funding covers is our monthly expenses for our district broadband and internet services. And also NCDPI will cover 10% of the cost. So again, it's no out-of-pocket cost to our district at all for our internet services. So the superintendent is recommending that the approval for this E-rate funding for next school year. Any questions?
No cost.
No cost.
Got my vote. And I second it if you call that
Is that
a
a
motion.
motion?
Yeah, that's a motion, man. And I second it.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. I will take a vote. Voting sign of aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so it is approved to go before the full board. Thank you. Okay, and last up we have Ms. Grant with the Stronger Connections grant overview.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are excited to discuss our Stronger Connections grant that we received this year, just for information purposes only. The grant is a federal grant that flowed through this Department of Public Instruction that allowed the 40 most distressed counties in the state were eligible to apply for this grant. The maximum amount received was $675,000, and it is a 3-year grant. So we were fortunate enough to be awarded the $675,000 in the grant. And it came about the same time that we started having some administrators ask us to help develop a program to address the increasing needs of our students with vaping and substance abuse. And we used to have a program in our district, and Mr. Lamb, you may remember this, with Rosemary Mitchell. And she provided a program where she worked with students providing case management and helping families access services, and instead of suspending children, providing them with supports that they could do that address their vaping and substance abuse issues. So with the grant, it supports the hiring of 2 behavior support specialists that are trained in substance abuse prevention and intervention. They help coach our current student support personnel within the schools, as well as provide the tier support for case management and to help address the substance abuse prevention and intervention for our students. It also supports a third of our district's MTSS director to help provide a circle around the whole child and close the gap with academics and social emotional needs of the. Thank you, Tremaine, I tried. Just to kind of put in perspective where our vaping and tobacco use, these are our ODRs from 2018-19 to 22-23. And you can see with the orange being 22-23, it has really increased. And we have seen the same pattern and trajectory that we have seen in 22-23 for this past school year as well. It may be a little bit higher, especially back when, if you think about 18-19 kind of being when the e-cigarettes started taking a huge takeover in our communities, especially with our students. But we have the issues at the elementary level, the middle level, and the high. So a lot of people have the mindset it's just within our secondary schools, but it is not. Also, with our controlled substances, our incidents as well, we are seeing the same thing. What was kind of alarming to us is that our middle school numbers for the 22-23 school years really shot up and even surpassed our high school numbers for our students for office discipline referrals specific to controlled substances. So we knew that we had an issue, and the principals were asking us for some support, and then this grant came along at the same time, so we were like, this is it, here's what we're gonna do. So currently in our health classes, all students receive already substance abuse awareness and prevention embedded within the health curriculum. And so that will kind of be our core intervention, that they will continue to receive the evidence-based core curriculum with that focus. And then there will be additional professional development provided to all health educators. Also, all secondary students who receive ODRs for vaping and tobacco will be offered additional learning modules to support alternatives as a place that we kind of have our alternative to suspension program now. This will take it a little bit farther for our students with vaping and tobacco. And then substance abuse, we'll get into with the case management. So we will have that set up. Also, all students who have office discipline referrals for vaping and tobacco will go before our student support teams for intervention planning. And this is where our MTSS director or coordinator will really help us support problem solving at the school level, individual problem solving, and then come up with what is needed next for that student. So you've got a team of people working with providing the appropriate supports that are individualized for that student. All students across the district needing that intensive case management due to substance abuse will be referred to our district behavior specialist. We'll have one that will cover the southern end and one that will cover from Nashville over for case management and community referrals. We already developed a community referral guide that we have our current student support personnel utilizing. The problem is it's an ever evolving guide because we have agencies who are not able to meet the demand of the needs of our students that we currently have. Our hospitals do not have beds, and they're often just sent back home, and they're not able to get the appropriate supports that are needed. All students in the district, of course, will benefit from increased MTSS supports, including that data-driven problem solving for academics, behavior, social emotional needs assessment, and decision making. That's it, Tremaine. Also in your packets, I included the entire grant, which will give you a lot more of the data and the community supports that we have. We have been working with Area AHEC the UNC healthcare system, our mental health support system. So we have kind of all come together and collectively worked through on this grant and worked to hopefully address some of our tobacco and substance abuse issues, not only with our students, but in our communities as well. Are there any questions?
I don't have a question, but I would like to make a statement. I think that's excellent. I would love to see something. I understand that this is a grant, so that there's, money attached, but if we could take some of these components, to also use when we have students who are in conflict, I think that would be a great, a way to implement some change, with the number of fights and confrontations that we have. And I know that we couldn't do the full program necessarily, again, because of money, but I think some of those components are something that we could definitely implement in other ways.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up because we are actually working on that. Dr. Farrow, we have a team that has been trained in restorative practices and restorative justice practices specifically. So we actually have a team meeting next week, I think. So we actually have 3 people in our district who are trainers now that we have spent this past year training, who will now come back and train teams at targeted schools. We will also implement, based on legislation, the peer-to-peer mediation. So we will also have those 2 programs where we have already provided there will be no money because we used our money up front to get our own trainers within our district so that it won't be necessarily a huge cost to us because of the way we've tiered the supports. But we will have that, and we do agree, Ms. Bullock, that is exactly what's needed because you get kids in fights, you put them right back in the same classroom in the buildings, and you haven't resolved those conflict issues that the students have with each other. And we often see it occur multiple times. So, yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Here's what I find amazing. The dollar amount for the NTSS program was a little under $700,000. Is that correct?
No, sir, that's only a third of the current coordinator's salary. The majority of the money falls within the behavior support specialist and in the professional development and coaching that will take place within the schools.
But here's what I'm saying is we got grant money and funding for almost $700,000. But we got homeless kids is going up and we can't find money to support the Boys and the Girls Club who was shelterless. And this is not the use. I guess I'm talking to Dr. Ellison. What do we?
Mr. Sharp,
Yes,
Sharp,
ma'am.
if we could just, because I understand what you're saying, let's have that conversation with Dr. Ellis. I think I want to keep it positive. Those are 2 separate issues. So any of those concerns, let's talk to Dr. Ellis offline.
One stems behind the other.
But you
One
can't.
drives the other.
No, not necessarily. Those are 2 separate issues.
I understand. Madam Chair, I understand that. I totally understand that. But if you got kids that are homeless, it's going to lead them to bad behavior, such as drugging and alcohol and everything else. But I just want to bring that point out.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so I just wanted to take the time to say thank you as the school year closes. And I've, been working with Dr. Farrow and his staff and as well as Ms. Nancy Smith prior to this with academic services. It's been just an honor to do that. And I just want to say thank you to the superintendent and cabinet and staff, as well as teachers and staffs at these schools. It's been a wonderful year. I know it's been a lot of struggles and I won't say struggles, but challenges and obstacles. But we've done an excellent job overall, and I thank you.
Thank you. Have anything else, Ms. Bullock? Okay, moving right along, academic services and accountability. I will call the roll. This business not here. Sharonda Thomas Bullock.
I'm here.
Bill Sharp.
Here.
I'm here. We have a quorum. Field trips, Mr. White.
Good evening. Good evening. So we have 2 field trips. One is overnight with our early college students,
is STEM Maverick. It was a grant that was presented to us for kids that are potentially going off to college. It'll be at ECU from June 16th through June 21st. We have 4 students that have agreed to attend. Parents will drop off and pick up, no cost to us. We do have 1 chaperone. ECU University will also provide additional chaperones. Males will be on 1 floor in a dorm, females will be in another floor with the dorm, and they will have chaperones throughout the hallways throughout each night. The Maverick is the STEM program is for underrepresented students. It helps them with workshops such as time management, anxiety, organization, relationships, and stress management. So I think it's a good program for our students. The second field trip is overnight, Rocky Mount High School girls basketball camp at NC State, June 13th through the 15th. We have 30 students that will be using an activity bus with 2 female and 1 male chaperone. And superintendent asks for your approval.
I entertain a motion to approve the field trips.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by me. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Motion carried. Thank you. Jordan's Driving School contract.
So it's another contract for the 24-25 school year. The rates have not changed. The student allotment that we get from DPI has changed. In item number 4 on the first page, it's for 1,070 students, which totals for $240 per student at $256,800. Mr. Jordan's already seen the contract and signed it. There's no change in the scope of service for this contract as it was last year. Any questions about the contract?
Is anybody else bids on that besides Jordan?
There's not been anyone to bid. There's been questions, but no one has actually come forward to bid for the service.
Okay. I entertain a motion to approve the contract for Jordan's Driving School.
So moved.
Motion by Sharonda Thomas Bullock, second by Bill Sharp. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed likewise. Motion carried. Alternative accountability model options. Ms. Griffin.
We are required each year to approve a alternative school accountability model. Tar River being our alternative school. The last 5 years, we have used option B, which is the model that it's 60% growth, 20% proficiency, and 20% persistence. Persistence is the part where the students who go to an alternative school are retained there and continue on to graduate. So after meeting with Mr. Ballard and having conversations with Ms. Nancy Smith, Dr. Ellis recommends that you approve option B as the alternative school accountability model, again, for Tar River.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the alternative accountability.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Sharonda Thomas Bullock. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. And I need a motion to approve the minutes from April 29th.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Mr. Sharp, second by Sharonda Thomas Bullock. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Does anybody have anything else to add to the committee meeting? If not, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Is that the last one?
Bill.